So obviously, we are in uncharted waters here, unprecedented territory with the 2024 election. Last time I had you on the show, we were talking about your book, The Year That Broke Politics, which seems ever more relevant as the days go on with this crazy news cycle. Every day something's happening. I know one of the things we talked about last time was when looking back on the 68 election, it was like every month something huge happened. And now it seems like every day something huge is happening. But the big news right now, Biden just stepped down yesterday. So what do you make of this current situation now that Biden stepped down?
Yeah, it's funny. The way you set that up there is really, really good because when we spoke last time, we spent most of the conversation talking about all the similarities between 1968 and 2024, but there were two obvious dissimilarities at that time. Not that long ago. I referred to the fact that in 2024 we had not really seen any kind of political violence, and secondly that historically speaking, history doesn't predict the future, but sometimes it's good at illuminating our possible future paths. That March was the month to watch because Truman stepped down in March 29 of 1952, and LBJ stepped down very aware of what Truman did on March 31st, 1968. And that was late, but gave their party enough time to still organize and have a semi orderly process to choose a nominee. Last time we talked, it's the second dissimilarity was it seemed that Biden wasn't inclined to follow LBJ and get out of the race. And here it is, just within the span of less than 2 weeks. Both of those dissimilarities are erased. So I think my quick take on Biden, and of course, my book was written 55 years after 1968. So it's probably going to take a little while for us to figure out what's really going on behind the scenes, because I think that's where the answer is. And I think the lessons of history suggest to me that President Biden had made up his mind, or at least was seriously considering stepping down before the rest of us learned about it. Like LBJ, who was ready about 2 months before to do it and just was waiting for the right timing. Some people have suggested to me just in the last couple days that was it George Clooney's letter on July 10th? What was it that started, even though the White House denied the possibility? Like LBJ, who went on television and gave a 30-minute speech not about withdrawing but about Vietnam, and just added those last couple of surprise lines saying he was going to get out of the race. Biden did something similar. We didn't see Biden yesterday. There were no still photos or videos. But from what I've read, his inner circle learned only at 1:45 p.m. Eastern that he was going to release that letter, which he released 1 minute later at 1:46. And just like LBJ, there was that surprise announcement, not very long, right to the point. So as it turns out, he did do what LBJ did, but at the same time, this is unprecedented because since World War II, we could go through several of examples of presidents who withdrew or vice presidents who were in this awkward challenge to gather a campaign very quickly, but none of these examples prepare Vice President Harris for what she's about to do, because she has less time than they do. She has a party that's at least as divided as those were. And of course, unlike any examples from history, it takes $1 billion to run for president. So she has huge hurdles that probably there's no exact historical precedent or path for her to follow.
Yeah, it's really hard to find. I think political commentators can try to do their best to predict what's happened, but this is like we said, this is unprecedented. It's very difficult to predict where it's going to go. I think all we can do is look back to 68, which was like kind of the closest election to, like you said, illuminate the path forward. And I hope that you do make a lot of money from this book because this book is very relevant now. So I hope that, people will buy this book and read it to look back on. But you mentioned the difference here between LBJ and Biden, and I know a lot of Republicans are hammering him on this, and I do think it's an important point to make. LBJ came on national television, spoke for 30 minutes with his face in front of the American people, and Joe Biden releases this on Twitter. Of all things, he's announcing that he's stepping down from the presidential race in a screenshot of a letter under his personal letterhead and not the White House letterhead, which I do think is important on Twitter. So, what do you make of that? Is it significant that Biden issued this statement under his personal letterhead on Twitter?
As a person who does records and a lot of Freedom of Information Act requests, I notice the letterhead and also the unusual signature right away. And I don't know what to make of it, either one. I think my speculation or my commentary are, by issuing it on, his personal stationery instead of White House stationery, it's possible that the message he intends to send is that this was a withdrawal from a political position, but not a withdrawal from the White House. And he might have anticipated that as soon as this letter is released, there would be those who would argue that if you're not fit to run for reelection, then are you fit to be president during your final 6 months? So it might have been in anticipation of that. The signature I can't quite figure out. I've had part-time presidential appointments in the last two administrations, including earlier in the Biden administration. I still serve on the federal government's FOIA advisory committee, which sort of lives under the National Archives. I have a letter from Biden kind of thanking me for my service. It might be auto penned. I expect it to be auto penned, but the signature on that letter that was released doesn't really resemble closely. I mean, you could talk to somebody who collects political items for a living and they could tease out all kinds of details that are beyond my ability to notice or recognize. But it seems a little off. Was he under duress? Was this someone very reluctant to issue this? We could speculate all day long, but my what I noticed was what you did was it was unusual.
That is extremely unusual, and that's an interesting point that I haven't really heard anyone talk about was not only the letterhead but his actual signature. So you're saying the signature on this statement that he just released is different than his usual signature?
It is a little different, and I'm not suggesting that maybe a member of the deep state issued it by under his signature or signed his name, but it's a little off. It's not his normal. He has a very eloquent signature. I mean, all presidents, they've signed their name enough times. It's like those of us who are sports fans who collect autographs in our favorite sport. I mean, there's a certain art or flourish to signatures. This one was not polished. It was much more. I don't know. It looks almost sort of hasty, or something's not. It's sort of like if I were to sign my name. I'm right-handed. If I were to sign my name with my left hand, it would look close, but it clearly wouldn't be the same signature.
Hmm. Yeah, that definitely opens up the door for a lot of speculation. Was it him who actually issued the statement? Is he in that rapid of a cognitive decline that his signature has changed? Definitely a lot of speculation. I don't like to get conspiratorial though, but you did bring up an interesting point, and this is one of the pressing questions, especially one that Republicans are hammering on him. Speaker Mike Johnson came out with a statement: if you're not fit to run for president, you're not fit to be president. So how do you think he's going to explain himself in stepping down from the race but remaining president?
Oh, I mean, this is going to be tough, and there's lots of ways to look at it because I think that's the argument, and I think the argument is not just won by Republicans, but even from within his own party. It really depends what motivates President Biden at this point. I mean, if he really is behind a Harris presidency, then maybe stepping down would be the best possible endorsement he could give, because he could give her a few months of on the job training, and we would see pretty quickly whether she's up to it or whether she's not. But I don't see that he's going to be willing to do that, and any other technique like pushing him out constitutionally or invoking the 25th Amendment, or whatever it might be, that just gets messy. And I think if there's one thing Democrats are trying to avoid, even more than losing the presidency, and even more than losing the House and Senate, is having an open civil war between now and November. And I just don't see how you can take him out of the presidency without having that kind of civil war. So the argument is there. I think it's something we can discuss. At the moment, I just don't see a bridge to that outcome.
Yeah, no, I definitely do not think he's going to step down as president. I mean, I really think it comes down to two reasons why he's stepping down. And I think it's a little bit of both. On the one hand, He's probably stepping down because he's seeing the polls that are coming out. Trump has been hammering him in the polls for the past couple of weeks, maybe even months at this point. He's winning in all the swing states. I think the real clear polling average, he's up by like 3.5 points. And then on the other hand, it's his senility, his cognitive decline, the reason he's stepping down. And if that were the case, then he's not fit to remain president. But you're right. There's just no way he does, because it would explode the Democratic Party. It would be very messy, because Kamala's, she's, I think she's definitely going to be the candidate. And a lot of Republicans are asking, well, why won't she invoke the 25th? But you're right. It would probably just be very messy.